All right, team, we're back. We're going to do a Boston Marathon race breakdown real quick. But before that, it's been about a month, or it has been a month since I broke 3 hours in Eugene. Really, this month, a lot of travel, a lot of zone 2 mileage, just very easy. Full recovery. Didn't really do too much, or didn't really think too much about running or training at all. Just got out there, ran based on feel, mostly like 5K, 10Ks, saw a couple different cities. Most of the weather was just hot. Like down here in Miami, it's like 80 or 90 degrees, very humid. Boston was hot a couple days, 80, 90 degrees. I don't know if that's just like a anomaly up there or not, but Knoxville was like 65, 70, little hilly. Vegas, I did not get outside just because the strip's a nightmare, so I did not want to get hurt or be stuck in traffic or stop a bunch. But as I said, the Wynn Hotel treadmills were probably the best I've ever seen. Like I told you, they had the figurine of a guy running around the track, so you could really pace yourself extremely well on a treadmill, which is the best I've ever seen. But as far as Boston Marathon goes, I know it's been like a year and a half. I did the Eugene breakdown last month, but really solid race. Some of the best energy I've ever felt in a race environment. I've heard Chicago and New York are very similar. I've heard similar things with London, Berlin, Tokyo. I've had some mixed reviews about Tokyo, I've heard. But Boston, hometown race, Patriots Day, the whole city shuts down. Everybody's drinking. Nobody goes to work. It is insane to get in and out of there. What happens is essentially you wake up, you get dropped off. I mean, I was with a charity, so I had to raise $10,000 for a Corey Griffin Foundation, which was awesome. That was a hefty donation ask. Some of these other ones, like for Chicago, which I'm about to launch the fundraiser within the next week or so, I only have to raise $1,850 or $1,800, which should be fairly easy. But Boston, asking friends, family, and your network for $10,000 is not an easy thing. So obviously what makes Boston very hard to enter through charity. But got there, you get dropped off at your charity bus. They drive you out to Hopkinton. It's point to point, so there's no there and backs. You start in Hopkinton, you end on Boylston, and it's energy every single step of the race. There's a lot of hearsay regarding the hills, and they say, mile 20 you have Heartbreak Hill, they have the whole Heartbreakers, they have the store there. It's like the big famed thing about Boston. But I will honestly say, after running Miami last year and then Boston, I can confidently say that Miami was a lot harder race, in two reasons. One, because the weather, because it was 80 degrees and the sun was beating down on you. And number two, you didn't have the crowd to get energy off of. Like when you are in mile 18 to 23 in Bayside Heights in Brickell, there is no one around. There's no tree cover. There's not really even aid stations in the last 6 miles, now that I think about, or last 4 miles that I remember. I don't remember getting water in Miami unless there was one time I saw a buddy of mine, I think it was at mile 19 or 20, I saw a buddy of mine and he had a Gatorade on him and I stole it from him. I was very, very gassed. Granted, it was my first one. My fuel wasn't there. With gels, I took all caffeinated gels. That was Miami. But going back to Boston, the weather was solid. I remember it being a little bit colder than Eugene. I remember not feeling my digits. I did have gloves on. I wore a lot, I feel, but I just felt colder than I did in Eugene. It was probably around the same. There was rain, so maybe that made me colder, or I was just damp out there. But anyways, you get dropped off at Hopkinton High. They drive you in. You start in the other thing is about Boston is that people don't understand is that it's a net downhill course. So everyone chirps the hills, but the reality is the first 17 miles you're running slowly, very gradually downhill, which I think eats away at your hamstrings. and it just you feel a soreness in a way that you wouldn't normally feel running at altitude or running uphill or running on flats. It's just a very long, extended, gradual downhill. But the biggest thing is just the amount of people. Having an A race in Boston is really hard coming out of the chute. There's just so many people. You're downhill, you really have to run an extra half a mile to get ahead of your pace group or situate yourself in a position in the pack where you're not consistently bobbing and weaving around the crowd, which any competitive racer completely understands what I'm saying. Awesome medal. Turning on from Hereford onto Boylston is probably one of the cooler feelings. You're just running in front of thousands and thousands of people. I've put a couple videos of me running and finishing in Boston, which was really cool. I do think it is a race that I'll do again, simply because it's my hometown and I want to do sub 3 there maybe. But overall, solid weather. I don't think it's a race that it's particularly, or at least for me, I never have a mentality running Boston. I'd never had the mentality running Boston for it being an A race or like a PR type race. Miami was my first in January, and then I came straight to Boston, so I didn't have a full training block. I really wanted to focus on recovery post Miami. I was feeling it way worse than I'd ever felt it between the 3 now that I've ran now, Eugene, Miami, and Boston. Miami I was most sore. Eugene I was sore for 2 days, but it was very manageable soreness. I felt like I had more energy and I was more willing to run within that week afterwards than I was after Miami. I think after Miami I was like, I might be done with this sport. I need to get on the bike for a month. I don't want to run. Now maybe it's just because Chicago is up and coming that I have more of a desire to run and train. And this last month I would say that I still enjoyed the running. I just didn't really think about the training, and I'm starting to get a little antsy to get back into a training block. It's kind of crazy that it's only been 30 days. I thought I'd want to enjoy the time off a little bit more, but I think just given where I live here in Miami and how many people are training and how many local races there are, and I was gone from Memorial Day up in Boston and traveling Las Vegas, Knoxville, and I'm looking at my group, my club, and I see there's a mile time trial that I wanted to do, so I'm gonna go do that tomorrow, and I'm gonna post something on that, trying to break 5 miles. And then there was another 5K that a couple of my buddies had ran, and was excited about those things. And I want a PR, I want to update my PRs, I want to feel stronger, I want to feel like I'm making more progress. But I don't want to be an idiot if I want to go out in Chicago and run a 255 or a 252 or a 251. I know and recognize that that's a lot of work. I think that I have a good idea of what it takes to shave off serious time from a 317 to a 259, but life gets in the way. There's more traveling, there's other life stuff, so we shall see. But long and short of it with Boston, Heartbreak Hill's overrated in my opinion. The weather's really unpredictable in Boston, being a lifer there, but I understand now, after being here for 4 years, how much the heat affects people, because people will say, oh, 65 in Boston today, it was so hot. It's like, man, I just ran today, it was 88 degrees and thick, so it does affect you, and getting used to running in cold weather and coming back down to hot. I can see it on my watch. I mean, my heart rate was higher today on a 5 miler outside on the Venetian than it was for 89% of my 80% of my Eugene Marathon. So it's very much a thing, and I think Chicago could be pretty similar. I know it's October, so it's a little bit closer to winter than spring, but we could get a 65-degree day. We could get 32 with wind chill. So I'm gonna be ready, and I'm excited. I'm excited for this block. I think there's a lot of upside. I think there's a lot of little races that I can jump into. But tomorrow I'm going for a sub 5-minute mile on the track. It's my first time running fast since Eugene. And that's pretty much my Boston Marathon breakdown. I would say, and again, I'm digressing, but I would say that Heartbreak Hill's overrated. There's a shit ton of people in the energy, which is good and bad. It's bad if you're racing and you're trying to get out in front. It's really good if you need energy on miles 20 through 26 in the last 10K. The infrastructure and logistics are pretty solid. It's just not conventional where you stay at the hotel, you walk to the start line, or you get an Uber to the start line, you're bussing out there, and it's just a little bit different. And it's a major, so it's definitely something you should put on your list if you're a big time guy or a big time girl. And it's a beautiful city. It's great food, great sports. But that will do it for Boston. As far as a personal level, I did not race it as it was. I had Miami in April or in January, and I actually stepped on a crack, and I curled my ankle really badly, actually. So I was out of commission. I was in PT. I was not training. I was not doing long runs. I think I did one 16-mile long run in that whole 3-month period between January and April. I just did a 3:30 marathon, 3:33 I think it was. Very easy, ran with some friends, tried to enjoy the day. A couple pickups, but just based off the energy there. It was not a race I put pressure on myself about. And sometimes I wish I did, but you live and you learn, and I think it's definitely one that I would do again.